In 2013, a Nike executive walked into an Oakland hotel room to re-sign Stephen Curry and opened his mouth. The first thing he said was Stephon, not Stephen, and the PowerPoint behind him still had Kevin Durant's name on it from the previous meeting. Dell Curry, Stephen's father and a former NBA guard, stopped paying attention right there because he knew exactly where this was going. Nike had matching rights on every outside offer for their athletes, and they chose not to use them. What happened next changed the sneaker industry for the next 12 years, and we're tracking every dollar of damage from that meeting to the deal Curry signed last month. The pitch that cost a fortune. Curry wasn't a household name in the summer of 2013. He entered his fourth season with Golden State as a good shooter with ankle problems, who showed flashes but hadn't broken through to the mainstream yet, and still needed to prove he could stay healthy through a full year. Nike sponsored him since college and flew him and his father into Oakland for what should have been a routine renewal meeting. The executive running the meeting stood up and called the player sitting across from him Stephon. Dell Curry, a former NBA guard who'd spent his whole career in locker rooms where people knew his son's name, waited for a correction that never came while the presentation rolled on, and a slide appeared with Kevin Durant's name still sitting there from a previous pitch. Dell explained later that he stopped paying attention after that. Nike offered around $2.5 million per year. That sounds like serious money until you see how their tier system actually worked. Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant sat at the top, and they got the campaigns, the resources, and the full weight of the marketing machine behind them. Curry sat in the second tier, and his father knew what that meant. He faced no real path to being the face of anything at Nike. Under Armour, a Maryland company better known for compression shirts and football cleats than basketball, came in with roughly $4 million a year, plus a signature shoe, plus the chance to run their entire basketball operation. Nike held matching rights written into every athlete contract. They looked at the offer and passed because they'd already decided he was second tier. The bet that paid off big. Under Armour signed Curry in 2013 for about $4 million per year. At the time, it looked like a minor deal for a company that couldn't crack basketball by betting on a player the big names didn't want badly enough to fight for. That bet turned into the smartest move anyone in the shoe business had made in a decade, and the numbers proved it within 2 seasons. In the 2014-2015 season, Stephen Curry won the NBA championship with Golden State and became the league's first unanimous most valuable player in history, which meant not one voter left his name off the ballot. Every single person who covered the league that year agreed he ranked as the best player in basketball, and no brand ever turned a second-tier signing into a market-moving phenomenon this fast. Under Armour basketball went from a punchline to a phenomenon overnight. The stock surged so fast that analysts had to invent entirely new ways to measure exactly what one athlete could do for a company's valuation. Their basketball revenue doubled, then doubled again. Analysts later called Curry a $14 billion asset after Under Armour's company valuation doubled on the back of one player's success, and the entire sneaker industry recalculated what a single athlete was worth to a brand. The Curry 1 sold out within hours, and the Curry 2 launched with demand the brand had never seen before in any product category. Under Armour looked like it might actually challenge Nike at the top of the basketball world. The company that paid $4 million a year for a player Nike treated as second tier built an entire basketball business on one man who became the most talked about shooter the game had ever seen. They spent 5 years and enormous resources building a sub-brand around him. Then the shoe almost ended everything, when the joke became the brand. In June of 2016, during the NBA Finals, Under Armour released a new colorway of the Curry 2 Low that came in completely white from the upper to the sole. Within hours of hitting the internet, the memes were already running. People nicknamed them Cookout Dad shoes, and emergency room nurses joked they looked like work shoes. Jimmy Kimmel picked them apart on late night television, and Stephen Colbert got in on it too. The ridicule was total and national, and it was exactly the kind of coverage that can destroy a product before it ever reaches a shelf, and most athletes would have pulled the shoe or issued an apology immediately. Curry called the shoes straight fire and had custom pairs made with flame emojis on the side, and he wore the joke and owned it completely in a moment that told you exactly what kind of brand builder he was. He wasn't the type to pull a shoe over hurt feelings. He was the type who understood that being laughed at and being loved are sometimes the same thing. The joke shoe sold out anyway. That self-awareness shaped his audience in ways most sneaker brands never figure out. It reached people who recognized themselves in the guy who could take a hit and laugh about it later, but the dad shoe roast was a sideshow compared to what Curry was actually building. The thing he had really been chasing since the day he walked into that Oakland hotel room wasn't money. He wanted control, and he was just getting started. The empire and the collapse. By 2019, Curry and his wife, Aisha, launched the Eat, Learn, Play Foundation, focused on food, education, and recreation for kids in Oakland. And over the next 6 years, that foundation invested more than $90 million in Oakland youth programs. He wanted a brand that could carry that mission permanently, something that would exist and grow, whether he was still playing basketball or not. It funded more than 125 programs, reaching around 300,000 kids. The work mattered to him in a way that went beyond writing checks. In November of 2020, Under Armour launched Curry brand as a standalone sub-brand modeled directly on Jordan's empire inside Nike, which meant Stephen Curry became president of his own brand with a mandate for purpose-led performance products. By 2023, analysts estimated the brand pulled in around $250 million a year in revenue, and rumors surfaced about a lifetime deal worth close to $1 billion. For a moment, it looked like Under Armour had built something that could outlast the player. Then it all fell apart. Under Armour began to collapse. Sales fell for 8 straight quarters, and North America, which was supposed to be their core, dropped 10% in a single year. In one quarter, their profit fell more than 96% compared to the year before, and the man who founded the company back in the 90s stepped back in to run the whole operation himself in the spring of 2024. Kevin Plank announced a restructuring plan costing between $70 million and $90 million. On November 13, 2025, Under Armour announced the split after 13 years. Both sides labeled it amicable, and both sides repeated the right things publicly. What neither side admitted out loud was the number Under Armour had to record on its own books to make the exit happen, and that number came to roughly $95 million in restructuring charges that pushed their total restructuring bill to about $255 million. Curry walked out with sole ownership of the Splash logo, the trademark, and all the intellectual property. Under Armour took the bill in a basketball business to rebuild from scratch. The partner who learned his name. In 2012, one of the best players in the NBA walked away from Jordan Brand and signed with a Chinese company that most Americans had never heard of. The American sneaker market thought Dwayne Wade was out of his mind. Jordan Brand controlled money, prestige, and the most powerful marketing machine in the sport. Li Ning offered equity, ownership, creative control, and access to a market of over 1 billion people. Wade labeled it the most important deal of his career from a business standpoint. Not the Jordan Brand deal, not the Heat contracts, not any NBA money. He built Way of Wade from the ground up with more than 10 stores in China bearing his name before signing a lifetime deal in 2018 that cemented an ownership structure the American brands had never offered him. Fast forward to 2026, and Curry arrives at Li Ning, not as an endorser, but as the owner of an established American brand looking for a manufacturing partner. The deal covers $400 million over 10 years. That money goes toward basketball footwear, athleisure, lifestyle, and a full golf line, and Curry brand gets the right to sign its own athletes, and there are plans for retail stores in China and the United States. Li Ning is the basketball market share leader in China, the world's biggest basketball market. Analysts estimate the total annual cost to Li Ning at approximately $60 million, roughly 14% of the company's annual net profit. The math looks aggressive because a $70 Curry shoe has to sell around 3 million pairs a year, about 3 times what comparable signatures move now. Curry signed it anyway. The difference between an endorser and an owner is who keeps the logo when the contract ends, and in sports business, companies that treat athletes as tiered assets instead of partners eventually pay for the difference. Sometimes that bill runs into the billions. Subscribe for more breakdowns on where the money actually flows in sports. Next week, another athlete who walked away from a signature shoe and ended up running the brand.